All right, Parshas Miketz, let's dive right in. It was at the end of 2 full years that Pharaoh had a dream, and behold, he was standing on the bank of the river. So let's see a medrash that the Sfas Emes is going to quote down, but let's see the medrash actually brought down. So the medrash first quotes a pasuk in Tehillim that says, "Ashrei hagever asher sam Hashem mivtachei v'lo pana el rachavim v'satei kazav." Blessed is the man that makes the Lord his trust and looks not to the proud, nor to such as turn aside to lies. So on the right, I have the Medrash Rabbah that quotes this pasuk that's really on the pasuk in Bereshis that says, "Ashrei hagever asher sam Hashem mivtachei." Blessed is the man that makes the Lord his trust. The Medrash says, Ze Yosef. Blessed is the man that makes the Lord his trust, meaning that, like, the trustworthy person, the person who believes in Hashem a lot. Ze Yosef, that's Yosef. Yosef encapsulates trust, Amunah. V'lo pana el rachavim. And then the second part of the verse in the Medrash that says, and looks not to the proud. Al Yadesha Amr L'Sar Mashkim, because Yosef says the Sar Mashkim is Zachartani, Viki Zartani, Nistofet Lo Shnei Shanim. Now, I'm not going to translate that. I'm going to first explain that. Okay? So, you hear me out. You're going to understand what that medrash means in 1 second. The beginning of this week's Parshas says, It was at the end of 2 full years that Pharaoh had a dream, and behold, he was standing on the bank of the river. So now, what does it mean at the end of 2 years? If you were just reading the Chumash literally, you would just say that Yosef had an interesting encounter with the Sar Mashkim, with the chief butler guy, and he predicted that you would get out. So please, when you get out, mention me to Paro. And when it says after 2 years, it just means after 2 years after that incident. Meaning, who knows how long Yosef was sentenced to jail from? And this has nothing to do with, like, his actual sentence. This is just 2 years from that interesting incident that happened with the chief butler. Now, Chazal tell us something very interesting. They say this was not a coincidence. He actually had 2 years added on to his sentence, meaning he was supposed to get out the day that he spoke with the chief butler, but he had 2 years. That's why it says at the end of 2 years, and that's why Paro remembers him on that day. It's because he was punished with an extra 2 years in jail. Now, where do we see this? So the Medrash, which I just read and I didn't translate that part, says right here, verse 14, V'ki im zachartani itecha kasher yitav lach v'asisa na imadi chassid v'hizartani el paro v'hotziani min habayis hazeh. So this pasuk is dealing with that. We know that Yosef at Tzaddik had interpreted the dream of the chief butler, saying that you would get out. So when you got out, please mention me to Pharaoh. So, but remember, this is in English, but remember me when things go well for you. Please deal kindly with me and mention to Paro and take me out of this house. So this is Yosef Atzadik speaking, and the Medrash says that Yosef was punished for this line, meaning he had an extra 2 years added on to his sentence, because Yosef Atzadik says Zachartani v'hizartani. Now, what does that mean? So some want to say, and this is my favorite explanation, is what is the sin of Yosef Atzadik? The sin of Yosef Atzadik is not that he asked the Sar Mashkim to help him out for getting from jail one time. That's called hishtadlus. That's the kind of thing you're supposed to do. If, it's kind of like that famous joke where the guy is drowning in the ocean and God sends him a boat and he says, no, God will save me. That famous joke, right? Well, so you take the hishtadlus, right? You take it. However, to implore the person, that's not yishtadlus. Meaning to ask one time and say, when you get out, please mention me to Paro, that's fine. But to implore him with the double lashon, zakartani, zachar, which means remember or mention, the hizartani, which also kind of means the same thing, to do that 2 times, the Medrash says, that is not proper. He should not have done that. He was putting too much eggs. He was putting all his eggs in the basket of the Sar Mashkim, as if to say he's not relying on Hashem. That's one interpretation. Some say, and that's why 2 years were added on, corresponding to each one of these languages of Zachar. Some want to say that he shouldn't have asked at all, that he was on such a high level that he should have had complete faith in HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Some want to say it was actually also okay to ask, but it was wrong to ask a Rasha for help. The chief butler was a Rasha, and he should have realized that Hashem was going to send somebody worthy, somebody good to help him, and that Hashem was not going to allow the story to take place through this Rasha. So whatever explanation you go with, okay, it leads us with a question on the Medrash, right? Meaning the Medrash seems to say, 2 contradictory things. That Yosef is the paradigm. He is the highest level of a person who encapsulates faith. He's the Ish Netman, right? Like, what's the language of the Medrash? Let's see. So it says, Ashrei HaGever Asher Sam Hashem Miftachle. Blessed is the man that makes the Lord his trust. Zeh Yosef. And then immediately afterwards, the Medrash goes and kind of like puts him down, so to speak. So how could it be that Yosef is considered the paradigm, the absolute highest level of emunah and faith in a person, Yet he like asks the Saramashkim for help, and we're cognizant that he did that and that he was punished for that. So how does that work? That is going to be the question that bothers the Sfas Emes. So I'm going to say this Sfas Emes is mostly outside, just so that it makes the most sense. And the idea is that he's trying to convey over here is that the best thing for a person to do when they make a mistake is just to admit it and then move on. So, for example, when it comes to the Malcham of Klal Yisrael, we have two dynasties in the beginning. We have the dynasty of Shaul from Binyamin, and then we have the dynasty of David from Yehuda. So, one of them lasted only 2.5 years. That is Shaul HaMelech, and his line was cut off. And then David's one, continued for a very, very long time. Why is that? See, they both made big mistakes. I mean, David made tons, seemingly big mistakes. And Shaul, made mistakes too, but I don't know if they're any worse at face value than David's. So some Mefarshim give a teretz that says something like this. When Shaul made his mistake, he blamed the people for the mistake he made. See, he was supposed to kill like all the animals of Amalek, and he left some of them alive. He left Agag alive. And he says, oh, the people took compassion on the animals. And Shaul HaMelech was reprimanded by Shmuel. And Shmuel, the Navi, Shmuel says to him, you are the king of these people. You can't, when they do something based in their heart, you have to overcome that. You're the Melech, okay? You're supposed to not be succumb to the wills of the people. You do what's right. Hashem said, kill all those animals. You kill them. So because he blamed the people for his shortcomings, he was cut off. But when David gets confronted by Nasan Navi for the incident with Bathsheba, what does David HaMelech do? He immediately says, I've sinned to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He doesn't blame anybody else. There's tons of excuses he could have made, but he doesn't make them. He took the responsibility on himself. So this is what the Sfas Emes gets at. You see, what happens is that Yosef Atzadik is in jail, and he asked the Saramashkim 2 times. He basically implored him to help him out. And so what the Sfas Emes says is this is what happens. Meaning, he goes let's pretend like this. Please help me. Please help me. And then the second time he was like, oh, no, I shouldn't have said that. No, I should not have done that. Yosef immediately realized what he did was wrong. Nobody had to tell him. He didn't spend the way that it's normally taught to people is that Yosef spent 2 years in jail suffering because of the mistake that he made, and that's it, right? And then he was like, oh, I wonder why I'm here an extra 2 years or something like that. That's how a lot of people just normally learn that. Sfas Emes says that is not true at all. The second time that he implored or asked the guy for help, he was like, help me, help me. Oh, no, I shouldn't have said another help me. He immediately realized that he made a mistake. And what did he do? He immediately davened to HaKadosh Baruch Hu and asked for forgiveness. Now, where do we see this in the psukim? So you can actually see this kind of explicitly in the Sfas Emes's words. If you look at one of the last psukim in last week's parsha, V'lo zachar hasar mashkim es Yosef v'yishkachehu. However, the chief butler did not remember Yosef, but forgot him and forgot him. So here's the thing. The Sfas Emes wants to know, why is it, and this is really a question from the Zohar, why is it this is v'lo zachar and v'yishkachehu? He, the chief butler, did not remember Yosef, and he forgot him. You don't need both. It's very repetitive type of way of speaking. V'lo zachar asar mashkim es Yosef v'yishkachehu. Why does it say that? Just say v'lo zachar asar mashkim es Yosef. Just say something like that. Why do you have to say v'yishkachehu at the end? So Sfas Emes says something unbelievable. You have to just know Hebrew, or it's not really going to make as much sense. V'lo zachar is a lashon of, okay, I didn't actively forget you. It just happens that people forget. But yishkachehu actually sounds as if it's active. And he forgot him. There was something actually trying to forget something. Okay? So they're not exactly the same thing. V'lo zachar v'yishkachehu. Okay? It could be interpreted that way. Could be. So what he wants to say is that, first of all, there is no noun associated with yishkachehu. Meaning it could be interpreted like this: V'lo zachar Sarah Mashkim es Yosef. The Sarah Mashkim did not remember Yosef. V'ishkachehu, don't read it the way 99% of other people read it, as if this is also going on the Sarah Mashkim. No, read this as if this is Yosef HaTzadik. Meaning, V'lo zachar Sarah Mashkim es Yosef. The chief butler did not remember Yosef. V'ishkachehu, and Yosef forgot. Meaning he actively tried, he meditated or something like that, the sarmashkim out of his mind. That's what he did. That's what the yishkachehu is. 99% of Humashim will say that both of these verbs, I think they're verbs, are going on the sarmashkim. The Sfas Emes says, no, it's going on Yosef, the second one. Because if it's going on the sarmashkim, it's repetitive. So it must be that it's saying Vishkachehu. It means that Yosef spent the next 2 years. He realized his mistake right away. He said, oh, I should not have tried to rely on the Sarah Mashkim and implore him. So you know what I have to do? I have to spend time forgetting him and pretending that he's even an option. I'm going to sit here and literally meditate him out of my mind so that now it's as if he doesn't exist and all I can do is just daven to Hashem, and I won't think about being helped by the Sarah Mashkim. Meaning he actively sat there and tried to forget. That's why it's repeated. It's not repetitive, because the vishkachehu, which is like an active thing, I'm forgetting somebody, I'm going out of my way to forgetting, that's going on Yosef. Meaning Yosef realized his mistake right away. So now we don't have a kasha anymore. Because here's the thing. If you are a person who is paradigm or embodies like some midah, and you make a mistake in that midah, but you immediately set out to correct your mistake, immediately without any delay, then of course you could still be a paradigm of that. It's not a kasha anymore. Because Yosef was on such a high level of bitachon and emunah, he realized immediately. That's meaning that shows how high of a level he is. He didn't just sit there in 2 years. If you interpret it the way 99% of people interpret it, that he sat there for 2 years, just like, I wonder why I'm here another 2 years. Then he is not the paradigm of emunah. But according to Sfas Emes, he realized right away. He was on such a high level of emunah that of course he realized his mistake right away. And not only did he realize it, he spent 2 years trying to fix it and get it out of his mind. That is only somebody who is a paradigm of emunah would do. In fact, the Sfas Emes says we can know he was successful at this because when he goes up to Paro, he never mentions anything about the Sarah Mashkim or anything like that. He always just talks about Hashem. Hashem is the one who interprets dreams, all these types of things. He doesn't even mention the whole mice of the Sarah Mashkim because Yosef had actively spent 2 years forgetting it. So this is a major lesson for us for when we make mistakes. We have to try to be like Yosef Tzadik. We do not go down for making mistakes. Yosef Tzadik is still called the person who represents Emunah and Bitachon because of the way he reacted. Right away, he sought to fix his mistake. So it's a beautiful lesson. Whatever you're trying to do, as long as you fix it right away, you say you're sorry right away, everything will be good.